So right now I'm going to be teaching you something very important in Blender, which is the modifiers. And you can access these modifiers when you select an object that you've created. And this wrench looking thing right here on the lower right corner, it looks like this. And you can add a modifier, and you can search these categories on what kind of modifiers they are. The most used one would probably be Subdivision Surface Modifier, and the good thing about this is you can actually stack them if you want to. So I'm going to be teaching you the most used ones, and so here we go. Alright, as proof, I'm going to be using my project here called the Ancient Roman Workshop, just so that you know that all these modifiers have been used for every single object that you can see here. Alright, so for the sake of example, I'm going to be showing you the difference with having a modifier versus not having a modifier. What we'll do is we'll duplicate this first. Now here we will add what we call the bevel modifier. And here we're just going to be beveling it normally using Control B. Now the difference between these two is actually not how it looks, but how you applied your modifier. So here, if you have a modifier here, you can actually toggle it back to its previous state, which is awesome. So that means if you do not like this and it's not something you're satisfied with, you can always cross it out. Now, if you go here to this one version that you have actually beveled without having to use a modifier and you enter edit mode, the difference is you can't use this anymore. It's actually kind of destroyed your original design because you've already confirmed and committed to this one. That's the reason why you kind of want to use like a modifier that will really help you go back into your original intentions without having to destroy the original version. So that's why we call it the non-destructive workflow. So take it what you may, but I find this really useful if you want like iterations with your designs and you do not want to fully commit with the things that you've done previously. That's something to note when you're using modifiers. So let's say you're happy with your modifiers and you want to confirm how this is going to finally look like with all these applied. All you need to do is just go here into this arrow pointing down, press apply, and when you enter edit mode, it will become the model that you designed it to be. But you can't revert back anymore because you've confirmed it. That's how you apply modifiers. Alright, so now here we are. We have a cube, and let's say we want to start with modifiers. I'm going to introduce you first with Subdivision Surface Modifier right here. You can find it here, I think, on Generate and Subdivision Surface. When you've done that, you can actually subdivide any object that you have, no matter how complex it is. You can add more levels by toggling this number here. And you can also access this with a shortcut Control 1, Control 2, or Control 3. You can definitely use this for adding more polygons without having to add more to your previous one, just to see how it will look like if you add more polygons. So this modifier has been very useful for objects just like this one right here, this bench that you can see. Might not look it, but actually if you look at the statistics in Blender, it looks like this. So it's been useful for this bench. Up next is the mirror modifier. Now what you can do is that what you've noticed is if you enter this modifier, you can actually see that there are no changes no matter what you press. That's because it's all dependent on this tiny dot right here in the middle called the pivot point. Now this is going to be your mirror, an actual mirror that cuts the object in half. So the way that you'll be able to know that it is working properly is by moving either the object or the pivot point. We will start first by moving the object. So let's say we'll move it right here on this side. So now as you can see, it mirrored here on the y-axis with each other because it's treating this very line right here on where this pivot point is as the mirror. So let's say you are in the edit mode and you want to move it. It will mirror based on where this is located. You can actually move this if you want to by going up here on the upper right corner by pressing options and then origin. Now when you have pressed this, the only thing that you can move is the origin. Now if you use G to move, as you can see, it's changing where the split of the mirror is happening. Okay. Now the cool thing is, you just make sure to untoggle this when you're changing things now when you've confirmed it. The cool thing is you can actually mirror also on the x-axis by pressing all these other options. Now as you can see, it's mirroring upside as well, which is really cool. Also clipping if you want things to clip together in the certain direction on the left and right or back to front. So here as you can see, it will start clipping. Feel free to use this for things like arms, legs, and everything that you do not want to duplicate on the other side or model all over again. So this in particular has been very useful for these arches because I kind of wanted to just model the left side instead of the right. So since we're going to be duplicating them a lot anyway, might as well just make the one side of the arch. And you can see it here that there's kind of like this split. But because the normals and the UVs are pretty good, it's not really noticeable. All right, next one is the array modifier. Now this is like a magic because this is something that's super good for things like repeating buildings or walls or windows. You get the idea. You can actually array this now over there, and you can change the factor and how the gaps are going to be made. The great thing about this is you only have to edit one piece and everything else will be edited. So let's say this is a wall that you want to make, and then we'll punch a hole here for a window, right? Right click, bridge faces. Now, all of these things will respond to the way that you've changed this. Really cool if you want to keep on repeating things all over and over again. The array modifier has been useful for the rooftop. So as you can see up here, there are so many bars that are lined up together and they have to be equally spaced. That includes all of these tiles. So if you look at here, all of these things kind of have to be exactly the same. So the array modifier has helped me put them across each other in evenly spaced. All right, next one is Solidify modifier. Now Solidify modifier, actually it won't work if you have an object that is completely solid already. You can find it here on Generate and Solidify. When you've pressed it, there's actually nothing going on here, but actually there is. If you go to X-ray mode, you can see that there is a little thickness right here. And this will only happen for flat objects. So generally, you want to use this for things like floors, cobblestones, everything else in between that you just want to thicken up. And it will only happen if there are flat surfaces. So now here you have a plane, and you add this Solidify modifier. You can add thickness to it. You can change the offset to 0, which is going to split it in the middle. So if you enter edit mode, it's here. And bring it a little bigger, higher, up, down. Really cool if you want to make solid things that are flat. So the Solidify modifier has helped me with protruding bricks. As you can see here, it doesn't look much up there, but here, if you look at this, those are actually planes that have been extruded from this wall. And then I just added a Solidify modifier and deleted the back face. All right, the next one is the Boolean modifier. So what I've done here is I've duplicated this cube and offset it up here, which is cube 0.001. So to access the Boolean modifier, just look for the Boolean modifier under generated, and then you can see these three options. Before you can use these though, you use the eyedropper tool to go and select the object that you want to use as sort of like a cutter. When you have the object here, you can start making changes. So we'll go and check first differences. What difference does is that when you hide the object that you use as a cutter, it will cut the area where the offset of this cube is. You can change the direction or where it's located, and it will completely cut that area off when you hide it. Really cool stuff. Now, union, on the other hand, is kind of like, well, as you can see with the name, joins two things together. So if you press union, you will see this slight Z fighting here. It's because when you hide the duplicated cube, it's already created a version that has this connected to each other as a single object. Really good for joining things together. You'll know if it's connected by toggling the X-ray mode, as you can see, or you can just go inside and see if it's hollow. And yeah, they're connected. Next is intersect. Now, what intersect does is it will intersect, as you can see, it will only model the thing that is inside the intersection between the two cubes. So if you hide the cube 0.001, it's made a model based on the cuts of the other two. It's the complete opposite of difference. So this is very useful if you want to model without thinking too much about the topology. So the Boolean modifier has been useful for my stands here for this mega scan asset because these two are completely separate objects. So it helped me combine them together by simply adding a cylinder on top of this other cylinder that has a completely different topology altogether. But it helped combine them to make it seem like a single piece, like a marble on top of this wood stand right here. Okay, so the next one is Multiresolution modifier. So Multiresolution modifier, still under Generate, Multiresolution. The great thing about this is you can actually add more polygons without having to use any other tools or sculpting. So this is great for subdividing things. So let's say we're going to be subdividing it a lot. You've added a lot of polygons here, but you can actually toggle it off. And the cool thing about this is that you can start sculpting if you're into sculpt mode without having to remesh. You can add details. Now you can see it reverts back to its original state when you're rotating it, but that's cool because you're just here for the details. This is really good for those people who want to sculpt their details without having to change their model too much. The Multiresolution modifier has helped me with details on the stands of the bench. All these details are hand sculpted and then textured on Substance Painter, so that way I can just retain the details while keeping the topology intact. So next one is Bevel modifier. So here, as you can see, it bevels the thing. So no matter how you have insetted or extruded, it will still bevel the sharp edges that you want. And you can change the amount of bevels that you want for it. Size, segments, right there. Really cool stuff, especially if you want to add more soft edges to things that you're modeling. The Bevel modifier has actually helped me make these banisters a lot more handmade and chiseled, because the edges originally were super sharp, so it felt like you were looking at a knife edge. I didn't want that to happen, so I beveled every single edge here that is sharp and made it feel like it's handmade. Okay, so the next modifier is the Decimate modifier. So Decimate modifier, what it does is it will lessen polygons on whatever object that you have. So here, for the sake of example, I have sculpted this rock-looking thing. Now we're going to be opening up the statistics so that we can see how many polygons, and also this wireframe. Now you can see that this is highly dense, but the great thing about Decimate modifier is that you can actually lessen the polygons that you want to lessen. So as you can see here, the lesser I add on the ratio, the more it will reduce. Really good if you want to change the topology of the thing that you have so that it will make your navigation a little faster in your viewport. So if you have a rock or anything that is organic and you don't want to have too much polygons, Decimate modifier is good for you. Now let's remove the wireframe, and you can see the silhouette is still there, especially from afar. The details are still there, but this is significantly lesser. Very useful if you want to use it for lessening polygons. The Decimate modifier has actually been useful for this stand right here for this Megascan asset. So if you look at here, it looks particularly small and rescaled originally. But if you look at the statistics, it's actually really dense, because Unreal Engine has this technology called nanite, where it will accept these very dense meshes and make them run smooth. So the decimation modifier has been very useful for lessening the polygons while maintaining the silhouette. All right, so the next one is Shrinkwrap modifier. So what you want to do is what it says it is. It will stick this object to that object. So we will look for the Shrinkwrap modifier here by adding, and then instead of going to generate, we'll go to deform and then look for Shrinkwrap. When you have this, all you need to do is to go and click on the eyedropper tool, click on the very object you want it to stick on, and it will stick on like glue. You can change the offset. Really cool if you want to add like some sort of armor or clothes to your character, or some sort of logo or decal on top of any object that you want. The Shrinkwrap modifier has been very useful for these tile objects. These are actually not modeled. These are like stickers or decals that you put on top of the object, which was recommended to me by my mentor here at CGMA. So if we look at these textures right here, as you can see, it's just a derivative version of this one right here on the left. And then here are the cracks, the broken version of this one. So I can add so many details because of the Shrinkwrap. You can add like so many different kinds of logos and designs to make it feel like it's a lot of details, but it's actually not. They're all just handmade in Substance, which is awesome. All right, now that you have these superpowers already, you can actually start using what we call stacking the modifiers together. So let's say we want to array first, and then we want this to kind of extend a little farther with a little bit of that gap right there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add another modifier, which is the deform one, and we want to mesh deform the thing. Oh wait, we're going to add a modifier deform and a simple deform. Now we can start changing the bend. What we want is we want it to bend on the z-axis, and we want it to go from here to there. So let's say we want to create a small table of some sort, well, some sort of train. What we will do now is we will add another modifier on this, which is the Subdivision surface modifier. We will lessen the space. We can actually change the stacking as well. So we want it to change first before we array it. Um, we will add that. Actually, instead of subdivision, we will add another one, which is the bevel, and we're going to change it because we want it to bevel first. There you go, and then subdivide so that it will kind of look like some sort of pillow of some sort, which is really cool. So it depends on how you stack your modifiers. The very upper part will activate first, and the others at the bottom will follow what you have previously done. So what it did first, it beveled first, and then it subdivided that bevel, and then from that subdivided cube, it started arraying, and then with a simple deform, you started changing the direction based on the axis in 145 degrees. So this is very useful if you want to make changes multiple times. And just be careful, because the more you stack, the more expensive it will be for your computer processing power. So you might want to be efficient sometimes with how you're going to be using this. But this modifier stacking technique is very useful and common in the industry, especially if you want to create things from scratch without having to model them manually. And then all you need to do is that if you're done with it and you want to confirm every single one of them, make sure that you're applying them from top to bottom and not just from the bottom to top. It's because if you do that, it will kind of ruin your modifiers. It doesn't know how to act. So you want to start first with the very top, then second, third, then fourth. You get the idea. Now we enter edit mode. As you can see, we have confirmed it, and that's how your final model should look like. So that's pretty much it for the modifiers. And I hope that this will be very useful for you in the future, especially if you're going to be making these complicated shapes and meshes in the future. If you like this video, please do support us on Patreon and Gumroad, so that way we can keep these tutorials free forever, keep the bar set high in terms of quality, and of course that we can stay up to date with current trends in the industry. Thank you for watching.